Hello again, it's Mr. Pete, your YouTube shop teacher, and this is tips number 929, and it's all about the JACOBS ball bearing super chucks. So let's get cracking. I do not think they print catalogs anymore. It's all on the internet, and they do have a website, but in this 1992 paper catalog, notice that they feature the ball bearing super chuck on the cover. They were pretty proud of it. And the way they priced them, they're really proud of them. Before we get started with the super chucks, let me clarify just a few little things from the last video that I did, and it was all about keyless chucks. And several people said, well, I have one with brass jaws. I have a keyless chuck with, well, you do, but this is the number 100, and it's not a drilling chuck. It has brass jaws. It's really called an armature chuck. It's used for holding the ends of armatures on starters or generators. Well, we don't do that anymore, but instead of using a center hole, the shaft can be held directly in the brass jaws for support and just snugged up with this. These are kind of pricey also. Several people told me that they do not particularly like the ALBRECHT keyless chucks because they're relatively hard to adjust and they don't spin freely compared to the JACOBS keyless chucks, which you can spin open and close real easily. I thought it was just because of the chuck being worn out and old, but I have several of them and they both spin pretty freely, and I agree with you, that is a nice feature. I thought I had more of these, but I really only have 3 of the super chucks, 2 3/8, and then this is a 3/4. Believe it or not, I do not have a 1/2 inch, but let's compare the size here with a regular JACOBS chuck. So this is a 3/8 standard chuck. This is a 3/8 super chuck. The diameter is quite a bit larger and the price almost double. I'll talk more about prices a little bit later on. And they are all marked super chuck up here someplace. And there's a row of ball bearings in there, and that's what makes them spin so freely and allows you to tighten them tighter than a regular chuck. Why? Because the ball bearings are in there, and I've looked through all the literature and no one ever addresses why. Well, the reason why is because it just plain reduces friction. Ball bearings and other types of bearings reduce the friction, and therefore you're not tightening against two parts rubbing without lubrication and so on. So you can get these a lot tighter. In fact, they can sometimes be used on smaller diameter drills as a keyless chuck, and I'll demonstrate that later. So if you're having trouble with your drills slipping in the chuck jaws, get yourself a ball bearing like this, and I think you're going to love it, except for the price. Now, another thing I've been told is these are all older chucks made in the USA, but the newer JACOBS, as far as I know, and have been told, are made, I think, in China. I don't guarantee that, but someone said that instead of stamping here, they're going to have etching, probably with a laser, and that the quality is not the same. I cannot verify that. Put it in the comments if you have any information on that, or if you own any of the Chinese ones. And someone says they try to avoid marking them Chinese or from China, but they will not say USA on them, I do not believe. I know this isn't going to show up too well, but I'll make a close-up of this so you can read the features and the advantages of these chucks according to JACOBS. And then lower on the page you can find all the repair parts, but they're terribly expensive. You might just as well buy a new chuck. There are several people, including Ox Tool, that do a repair on these, take them apart. I'm not going to do that because there are several videos on that, although I do have one here that actually needs to be serviced, I believe, because it's kind of tight, probably needs a good cleaning. I thought I'd show you the prices on these chucks, comparing the super chucks with the standard chucks, and I took these prices January 2024 from McMaster Carr. So a 3/8 chuck 2A is $116. The 1/2 inch is 133, but look at the price jump here when you get into the Super Chucks. The 3/8 is 173, and the 1/2 inch model is $242 plus tax and shipping. You know, chuck keys can be a real nuisance if you can find them, of course. So let's try drilling an 1/8 inch hole, as my brother told me several years ago, on just tightening by hand with small drills. Now, I don't believe this will work with the larger ones, but I'm just going to get this as tight as I can with my arthritic hands and fire it up. There's no center hole, so we'll see what happens. She's wobbling, of course. I don't care about that. I just want to see if the drill slips in the chuck. And it does not. I should have had a little oil handy, and I should have pre-center drilled because you can see it trying to find the center. Alright, I flipped the work around, and let's put a 1/4 inch bit in there and see what happens. Again, no center hole. This helps you see the necessity of a center hole, doesn't it? As tight as I can get it here. Okay, that was pretty amazing, wasn't it? So a lot of you now realize that even though you don't own a keyless chuck, if you've got a Super Chuck, you do have a keyless chuck for the smaller sizes. And I'm not going to take it up any larger than 1/4 inch, but this is mild steel, and these are used drill bits on top of it. They're not brand new. So did you find that interesting? If you did, put it in the comment. I would avoid buying used chucks if they're from a shop, a production shop where they were heavily used, because they might be worn out and it would be very expensive to rebuild them. So look for high quality JACOBS chucks, made in America, ball bearing type, and I think you'll like them. Look at how nice and freely that spins. And I'm not being paid by JACOBS. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. And I'll see you next time. I'll have a few still pictures to follow if interested. See you soon.